for those of you who've just joined us, I'm in conversation with the author of Following Fish, Samanth Subramaniyan, who's also a prolific writer. He's right now a deputy editor with The Mint. He's based in Delhi, but he writes for a number of other publications, and he's got a very, very active and very interesting blog. So you can go.
But it used to be more active than it is now. It had to go into hibernation when I started the book.
You know, in fact, the first blog I ever read in my life was yours 5 years
really?
ago.
I didn't know that. Oh, yeah.
5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And I went home last night after the book launch and I read some more, and you write about so many topics: travel, literature, food, politics, Carnatic music, sports. So, what are you, a human sponge?
I'm a worker ant, let's say. So I mean, if I have to write about something, I dig and I dig and I dig until I think I have enough, and write the piece, and which is really sort of what most journalists do. It's just that I tend to do it across more fields than other people.
Now, I would suggest that everybody read this book because it is yummy and mouth-watering and evocative and intelligent, and has politics, history, about culture, anthropology, everything, but it has fish as its motive. And Samanth travels along the coastline and writes about places like Hyderabad and Kerala, Karnataka, Mangalore, and so on. So now we're on essay number 3. We spoke about the first 2 essays in the first segment of the show. That's why you must tune in on Off the Record at the very beginning. When we're on essay number 3, and Samanth travelled to Manapad in Tamil Nadu and to Thoothukudi. He'll tell us more.
Yes, so around Manapada and Thoothukudi are a community of fishing. It's a sort of a fishing community, a fishing caste called the Paravas. And it's an old community, and they were all at some point roughly 400 years ago converted en masse to Catholicism. And so that affected their own faith in some ways, and it didn't affect their faith in some ways. So what you see today is sort of a syncretic blend of their old Hindu traditions and the Catholic practices that have since come into it. And there's even a sense of conflicted identity among some of them about whether they should still continue to be Catholic or whether they should revert back to sort of their old Hindu traditions. And it's an interesting place, and it's an interesting, they're very interesting people. And the sea and the fish, I guess, since it's a part of their life, it really impacts their existence and their religion in huge ways. There's sort of a big mix of what they do for a living and how they worship.
You know, this is one of my favorite essays because there's so much interesting trivia. It's about how these people, even though there's the Portuguese influence there, their food remains untouched. It retains its identity. There's also the ambivalence which they feel towards the church, even though they've converted and they're all Catholics, because they feel that the church has taken away some of their leadership rights.
Right, that's right.
And then there's also language, you know, how the vehicle in which Mother Mary is carried around, it's still called a ponter, and the word for worship is aradhana, and the word for church is kovil. So it's got just a whole lot of very, very interesting stories, but we can't dwell so much on each essay. We have to move to the next one, which is a really fun one. It's called On an Odyssey Through Toddy Shops. And yesterday Samanth was saying that he has a stomach made of iron.
Cast iron. I mean, after eating in toddy shops for a week, I think you need a stomach like that.
So this, I'm sure, was just one of those pieces you thought, let me just go on a journey with my friend, let me just get...
It really was. At some point somebody told me, saying, you know, in the toddy shops in Kerala, there's a very unique subculture of food, and obviously fish plays a huge part in it because they're all either along the backwaters or along the coast. So I thought, you know, what better? And that was really all I needed. And so we went to Kerala for a week, and we traveled from the south to the north of the state, and we ate and we drank in toddy shops for a week, and it was a great story.
But the fish wasn't really great there.
Not to my taste. I mean, there's a lot of fish in the sense the variety is huge, but the way they make it is sort of not exactly, didn't suit my palate.
And there's this very amusing sort of aside there, because someone goes with this friend and they eat this really fiery fish which is swimming in a bath of horrifically oily and spicy gravy, and the friend Samanth is, you know, having a tough time swallowing the fish, and he's sort of shut his eyes tight, And when his friend has done the same, but then the friend opens his eyes and says that, that reminds me of home.
Yeah.
But Samanth later says when he's eating curd rice. I thought that was really, really funny.
Yeah, that was, I think it was 4 nights into, that was our 4th day of eating fish and toddy shops for, days on end. So at the end of it, I just wanted something, that was not meat and not spicy for dinner. And so I ordered rice and curd. I mean, what else? Tide Sadam is sort of, it reminds me of home still.
Yes. No, I thought before we move on to the next essay, which is where Samanth goes to Mangalore, I thought we'd talk about commissioned books. I bring that up because yesterday someone in the audience made an interesting point about authors who are commissioned to write books. Is that stressful because you have a deadline, and does that sort of hamper your creativity?
I should say most commissioned books don't. The commission doesn't include the deadline. The commission just includes sort of a brief, or not so brief in some cases, idea about what the book will be, how it's structured, and so on. In my case, I got very lucky. What they just said was just travel around the coast, try to travel up. And so the concept of the fish was mine, and how to reinterpret it in different states was mine. And so I had that degree of creative liberty. I imagine if the commission is narrower, it may be more difficult to be creative with it. But on the other hand, it may help you focus. And I guess publishers are also smart about who they give a commission to. They think the writer is going to be unfocused to start with. It always helps to give him a brief or a commission and, go from there.
And what's also interesting is that Samanth would just travel from place to place, and he would just sort of dig out a contact and just make a cold call to somebody like you did in Mangalore.
Like I did, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's also one of a very, very beautiful story, the Mangalore story.
Yeah.
But how do you go about it? Do you take your computer along with you? Are you just scribbling down notes?
No, I'm scribbling notes all the time. I mean, I think when I was traveling, a couple of friends took photos of me, and in every photo my head is down and I'm doing this. I'm never, sort of not doing that.
And in Mangalore, the essay is called On Searching for a Once Lost Love. And Samanth had a tough time finding this fish that he ate, this dish that he ate many years ago.
The classic Mangalore fish curry.
And then where did you find it? Why don't you tell them?
I found it in the house of sort of the head of a fishing cooperative, who was a very nice gentleman who didn't eat fish himself, which is bizarre. But then he took me over to sort of his daughter-in-law's kitchen. She lived next door, and she whipped me up sort of a fish curry from scratch. And it was delightful. And I have to say that, as I say in the book, I fell a little bit in love with the chef right there. I mean, she was beautiful, and she was sort of cooking so expertly. I mean, it's difficult not to fall in love with her.
Yeah. So the next essay is called On Pursuing the Fastest Fish in the Ocean. But for that, you'll have to come back after the break.